Hello and welcome back to the Op Podcast, the podcast where we talk about operating and the art of visual storytelling. I am Dave Comides, your host, and something a little different today. I'm posting the audio from a panel that I moderated the other day here in Atlanta that the SOC, Society of Camera Operators, put on and was gracious enough to allow me to be a part of, where we had six operators, myself included, and a dolly grip, basically answer kind of rapid fire questions about the part of operating that has nothing to do with touching the camera, which is about 99% of it, the interpersonal skills, all those other things. It was a really great event and some really great information that I'm happy to pass on to you. So without further ado, here you go. Just a little bit of business before we start. There may be a curse word here or there in this episode, so please listen responsibly. As always, our website, theop.io, is up and chock full of tips, tricks, and gooey operator goodness. Make sure to check out the breakdown, where the best operators in the biz explain shots they have done, the musings, where we discuss everything from quick tips to larger concepts of storytelling, the answers, the images, and so much more. I may or I may not take a break or two during this episode, but I promise that none of them will be longer than 22 seconds. Finally, if you are enjoying the podcast, please follow us, write a review, share us with your parents, and talk us up around the water cooler with your friends. So grab a beverage, sit back, and enjoy the op. Thanks for listening.
Lock it up, nice and quiet, and let's roll.
Rolling. Victor 30 Echo, take 2.
Hey, Mark. Hey, Mark.
And camera set. And action.
So welcome, thank you for coming. It's really great to see everybody. Thanks for coming out on a Sunday. I want to thank, first of all, Chapman for having us here, this amazing facility. And we're finding out, there is the possibility that when we're done, they won't give a little tour if you want to see this. And it's an incredible facility, and I would suggest you do that if that's the case. And of course, the SOC for putting this together. The SOC, Society of Camera Operators, is an international honorary organization with 1,600 members. And our mission is to elevate the art and craft of camera operating. We publish Camera Operator, which is a quarterly multimedia magazine, which is available with no subscription. If you haven't gotten it, you should. There's great interviews and articles in there. There are multiple memberships that you can look at. You can look at soc.org to find them out, but there's everything from like associate all the way up to, I don't know what they call it. And it gives you access to all sorts of training videos and you name it, and events and things like this. So definitely worth looking out for. The next event will take place in Atlanta on October 5th, although I don't actually know what that is. So look on the SOC website and you'll find it out. I think it may be a crane workshop, but I'm not sure. So we have a great panel here today, and I want to thank all these people for being here. I'll do myself last. Chris Duskin has been operating a camera since the late 1900s, and as have I, and is a talented DP as well. His credits include Endgame, Spider-Man: No Way Home, Behind the Candelabra, which is a movie that a lot of people didn't see, but is really actually quite unbelievable, and you should see it. And Logan Lucky. Brigman Foster Owens, Briggs, has been operating since about 2008. He works as a B camera operator and sometimes A as well. And his credits include Fight Night, The $1 Million Heist, Creed 3, Cobra Kai, and The Resident. Jessica Hershetter is a B camera operator who's been operating since 2021 and is presently working on Cape Fear. She's also worked on The Resident, Black Mafia Family, and Reasonable Doubt. Matt Petrosky is an A camera steady camera operator with 20 plus years experience, or at least that's when he bought his Pro Vest, so he's not quite sure before that. Credits include Ironheart, Thunderbolts, and The Tomorrow War and Mud. And finally, Greg Faceash, who came in last minute for Spencer Hutchins, who was going to be here, but we're so happy to have Greg here. He emailed and said if we needed anything, and we did, so we're excited to have him here. He's an A-camera steady camera operator with 14 years experience, and credits include Ozark, English Teacher, Teacup, and The Valley. And I've been operating also since the late 1900s. I'm an A-camera steady camera operator, and I can never think of my credits. Ozark, West Wing, ER, and some other stuff. Without further ado, I'm going to throw out the first question, and we're just going to get going. So, again, if anybody in the back can't hear us, put your hands up, and we'll speak louder. How often do you think about the edit as a camera operator? Matt, I'll throw this to you.
I want to say I think about it all the time. I probably don't think about it 100% of the time, but I think it's super important. a good camera operator, a good cinematographer, I think needs to have a sense of editing. And if you're working with a good director, they usually already have it edited in their head. And it just is also, it seems like it requires more like mental math to kind of think about the edit and stuff, but it actually ends up being very liberating because you may realize that you don't need this beginning part of the shot to be perfect, or you can, it doesn't matter what happens at the end of it because they're only going to use this part of it or something. And so understanding editing and watching movies from an editing perspective, I think is super useful.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I think it's an extremely important part. I wouldn't say to think about it all the time, like Matt said, but I think about it quite a bit because, especially if you're an A operator and you're blocking a scene, sometimes the director hasn't thought it all out, or maybe the DP hasn't thought it out. Maybe he's more of a lighting director than a camera guy. There's some of those, and you kind of have to figure out the coverage for the entire scene during rehearsal, essentially. So that has to be an editorial mindset to figure this out. And also, like, all right, in 7 hours when we turn around over here, we don't want to have that guy against a white wall, which sucks. Let's can we rotate it also? There's a window back there or something. So you have to, I think, really use that editorial mindset constantly. I think it's one of the most important parts of the job, quite honestly.
Jessica, your B camera right now in Cape Fear. Are you thinking about that?
I am thinking about that, especially because the director, even if they have an edit in mind, they sometimes communicate it and sometimes they don't, and it's really valuable, at least for me, to know, is the shot that I'm currently doing an in or an out? Because then I can know if I can, give it a little something to bring it in. Or to
What do you mean by an in or an out?
Like if I'm on a slider and it's the thing that's going to end the scene, it's good to know if I'm just holding it there because it's the middle and they're going to chop it up, or if it's something that like maybe I can slide out to give them sort of a way into the next, out of that and into the next scene.
Greg?
Kind of leapfrogging off of what Chris was saying, thinking about the edit and anticipating setups ahead, you can also use that as an opportunity to insert a little creativity and maybe some elegance by offering a way to get from one piece of coverage to another, actually sometimes saving a setup. So you're offering efficiency and having a little opportunity to be creative as well.
Bruce?
Pretty much what they all said. I'm definitely always thinking that, especially if A has a shot over here, and then I'm thinking, okay, what are they going to jump to next and edit? They're going to want to use either a close-up, a medium shot, or if I'm looking at the sides, if it has something to do about the watch that the person's wearing, it may tell a story point that, make sure I can mention that to the DP or the director. Do you want me to get this during that time? And that again, that will save a setup too. And definitely during like the blocking rehearsal, you're also going to see, like what Chris is mentioning, like we're shooting this way, but what does it look like when we turn around? Like we might want to shift them and just throw that out there, because sometimes DPs and directors they're so caught up in the beginning, the first shot, they're not really thinking about the the other pieces of the puzzle, really.
Yeah, I think the key is you don't assume that everybody has thought of everything,
Right.
because to me this is an industry of redundancy. So it's better for me to go, hey, do we need to cut over here at this point? And they go, no, it's covered here, and we're going to cut it that way, as opposed to nobody says it and you miss it. And the other thing, especially in TV, that I was taught early on was assuming that they're okay with it, and I'll always ask if it's okay, to give them multiple ways to get into a scene, because you never know when a scene is going to be upcut and they're going to start in the middle of the scene or something like that. So once we've gotten 2 takes that are perfectly good and we're doing a third, I might go in and go, hey, do you want me to pull out from the fruit basket or something or whatever, and give them options. And then the other part of it I would say is, I think the key is in how you bring that up. Is you don't go to them and go, you're going to need this, because that usually doesn't go well with most people. You go up and go, hey, do we need a close-up of this at some point? And then the other thing which was mentioned, which I think is important, is for me, I don't like when things cut to an insert. So anytime that's involved and it's on the shot list, as we're going along, I'll go, hey, at that point when he's putting the pen down, I could go tag that computer and come right back up to him. You want to see that? And sometimes it'll work and sometimes it won't. But I'm always trying to think about
Yeah, and you make the insert part of the shot as opposed to like cut, insert, and then back out again.
And I'll tell you, some of my favorite things are when I'm on a show and I get a text from an editor who says, thank you, so you're giving us such great stuff. Because that to me means they have choices and et cetera, et cetera.
One thing I think about when I'm doing the dolly is thinking of the scene before and the scene after.
Exactly.
Right? If we left that scene going right to left, where we're not coming left to right, things like that. So as Dolly Grip, I'm always thinking that as the editor. On the last scene, we left going right. So I want to know when we come back in, I'm going to come in from left. So
Exactly. Yeah. So you're thinking about those
I think
things.
even too, like with camera movement, even if you have a director that knows what they want or something like you're doing like a big crane shot for, let's say, a 2-minute scene, you can't have the boom up last 2 minutes. Like it'd just be imperceptibly slow. So like if you're going to open the scene with it, maybe that's like, you're high wide and you're coming into the scene. But if it may be the kind of thing where the scene starts in close-ups and it's really intimate and then just cuts back to a high wide and you see them as this tiny characters in the frame in a big space or something. And so like asking those questions, like where you want to be, can help inform. And even if they don't have the answer, maybe it makes them think about it. And then, you end up with something that'll actually make the movie or whatever.
But I think the key is if you're gonna be a top-notch operator, you are thinking about the edit, and it may not even be that you're thinking about their edit. You're just thinking about an edit because you want to give them options, and then they obviously have their own ideas generally. So moving on, what preliminary questions do you ask the director or cinematographer to understand their vision or style for the project? Like when you got hired on, you're having that first meeting or that first phone conversation. What do you talk to them about?
I always ask for a for their like visual pitch deck if they have one.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times they do and they're excited to share that. I got one for the show I'm on right now, which has been so valuable, and they actually just re-edited it with what we've shot so far,
Oh, cool.
which has been even better because then I've seen like, oh, they really liked when we did this, this, and this. So that's been useful even moving forward part of the way through to have.
Oh, that's great. I like that. Anyone else?
I ask for if there's any sort of along those lines, like the pitch deck, but also if there's any movies or shows or something that the DP and director have been talking about, like referencing visually or whatever. It's a good place to start. And if I haven't seen it, I try to at least watch some of it.
Yep.
Yeah, because they're generally, the DP and the director have done their research and they're looking at stuff. It's not coming out of a vacuum, so it's good. Hopefully, not all the time. But as Matt said, what were they thinking about? What films were they looking at? What references should you take a peek at? And,
It's also a good way to connect to them, because if a reference is a movie that you happen to like or you happen to connect with visually, you can definitely play off that. And even if it's something you've never seen, you can come back to them excited about it. And it's a conversation that you can have with them as a filmmaker, and it sort of helps begin those like kind of creative bonds. You have those conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I would say is you watch those movies, and then usually I'll go back to them for a second conversation. I'll go like, I love, I'll have one or two specific things. Hey, I really love this scene, and I love how they shot that, like something specific. But then I'll say to them, like, what aspect of this are you looking at? Because the movie has so much stuff. Is it the movement? Is it the framing? Is it whatever? And it just sort of like it hones in and zeroes in on what are we going for. And then for the first half of the first day, you follow that, and then it all gets thrown completely out the window. But at least you saw another movie you might not have seen, so that's always a plus. Anyone else before I go on to the next question? Actors. Dealing with an experienced actor who may be method or used to a much higher budget production and is now working with you on a lower tier project and maybe isn't happy about that. Introducing yourself to actors, how involved are you with actors? How do you figure out how much you need to be involved? What's your process with that? Who wants to go first? Anyone? Greg.
I've been told personally by the DPs that hire me that one of the reasons they hire me is because I'm pretty involved with the actors. Not all camera operators are that way. Some are less engaged. For me, I think it goes to one of the soft skills that makes you a good operator, and that is emotional intelligence and interpersonal skills. And touching on something you said earlier, Dave, about like, instead of saying, you're going to need this, forming it as a question. My mother-in-law taught me this a long time ago with her husband. Make them think it's their idea, and they're going to buy it.
Yeah. Across the board, by the way. You've never had an idea in your life.
So it's the same thing with actors. Yep. You can communicate with them in such a way that they go, oh, well, why don't I just do it like this? And it gets them to do exactly what you were hoping it was going to do.
the better relationship you have with them, the easier it is when you're, a foot away in a bathroom with them and it's feeling very vulnerable. So it's really helpful to have those close relationships so that they trust you.
Yeah, it's really about trust with them, and gaining that trust because, like she said, you're going to be, sometimes you're going to be 2, 3 feet away from them all day, so you have to kind of nurture those relationships and let them be aware that you're actually looking out for them and, trying to make them look good. And then they're like, oh, okay. And then you gain that kind of trust.
I think it's just like along what kind of what everyone said, and it's important. It's about trust and about. It's very easy to forget. Like we get in our bubble on a set where we have all of these really like capable like artist craftspeople that all the specialized equipment and everything, and how that must look and feel to come from literally outside base camp wherever and walk in and like we may all just done another job together. We know each other, this and that, and it can be very intimidating. And so. Even for a seasoned actor, and so to try to help break that down to show them that, hey, we're here to help you. And I try to do that too, especially if I'm on with like the hair, makeup, costumes team that's on set, to just get to know them. And back when it was film, I'd invite them over and say, hey, if you ever want to look through the eyepiece, to just see what we're really seeing. But I always invite them to come by, say hi, check out the monitor. If it's something where they're trying to touch them up and we're in a car or something, I'll ask a dollar, hey, can we just put some marks down so we can pull back and let people in and out of the door, and everyone can kind of do their job and not feel awkward like they're stepping over stuff or something. And it's just about, it's about just having that, I think, that dynamic where you have just trust and communication, and they're going to look out for you too. It kind of goes both ways.
100%. Yeah. Briggs?
Yeah, I would say with actors, read the room. Like there's always a time and a gap when to introduce yourself or talk about something maybe they did something cool on the weekend. So after you build that relationship, just know when to talk to them, because they might be reading their sides, or they might be trying to think of their lines and pacing back and forth. And just know, like, okay, that's not the moment right now. Maybe it could be tomorrow. It could be the next day. It could be whenever it is. But definitely make sure you introduce yourself and just back up and just be just observe them and learn their personality. Because a lot of times you hear about an actor and they might have a reputation of being, mean or bad or whatever it may be, but they might not have that relationship with you. It can be completely different. They might have the relationship with production, but usually an actor wants to be really cool with an operator because you are going to be with them the whole dance of the show. So just be cool with them basically, and then try to, let your personality shine, or try to get them to show their personality. If you're working with a method actor, then know that they're being method and give them their space, I would say.
Yeah, and the thing that you've heard everybody say is trust, which I think is so important, because to me, you are creating this safe little bubble, and there's honestly a lot that I do as an A-camera operator that's very sort of like protective, and trying to keep stuff away from them that isn't they don't need to deal with, and trying to make it as simple as possible. I have a thing on day one, usually day one. Sometimes if we have a hair and makeup or whatever, I'll introduce myself. I'll introduce everybody in my team so they know who they know who's staring at them and who the dolly grip is and who everybody, because they're going to work with them, and I want them to treat them like people and know each other. And I ask them what they like to be called, and I ask them do they like to know frame sizes. And the reason is because, first of all, it helps me because I have a little bit of information. Number two is I can immediately assess how we're going to get along by the way that they answer that question. And it's almost 99% of the time correct. And then I know how involved I'm going to be. And then one of you mentioned something about asking how their day was or whatever. The interesting thing is, you don't want to on day one go, hey, I'm Dave and I loved you in this and you were so great. What did you do when the waterfall came? Or what? You don't want to do that. You want to basically be like a spectator in the zoo. You want to go and say hello, and then you want to step back and you want to watch and you want to get all the information. And then 5-6 days later, when they are next to you off camera and they're not doing anything, you may go, hey, how was your weekend? I hung out with my kids. Oh, you got kids? Yeah, I have my kids in softball and whatever. And suddenly, you're a person as opposed to whatever. I'm also very careful about asking how their weekend was because I don't want to go, hey, what cool thing did you do that an actor does or whatever. But you start to actually make that interpersonal relationship. And then when you are in that bathroom and you're 2 feet away from each other for 6 hours, it makes all the difference in the world, because they will give the performance that they need because they know they can trust you, and you can do what you need because they know that they can trust you. So it makes all the difference.
I'm also always careful to give a why. Like, hey, can you put your weight on your left foot because that way I can see you better,
Yeah.
as opposed to just here is my request.
Yep.
Like, this is how it'll help move the scene forward.
Yeah, it's actually interesting you say that, because a lot of what I've found that I tend to do is I tend to give what I'm trying to achieve and let them come back into it. It's like, I'm trying to find you over in front of the window, which is a little bit to the left. Oh, I could just throw my weight over here. Could you? That would be fantastic, you know? But it's the same thing as giving the why. It's like not just going, hey, can you put your head higher? It's like that doesn't work so well. So,
And then you build that trust, you know, they can help you out as well. It's like, hey, you're killing us on that stand up. You're just jumping out. Can you just take 10% off? Like, oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Because they're not really thinking of that. They're thinking about their performance.
Yep.
But when you build that trust, it's a real working relationship.
And that's actually when all the magic happens. Is when you don't have that, it's just a slog. But when you have that, it's just the best thing in the world. It really is. It really is fantastic. All right, moving on. You can see the day is falling behind. What do you as a camera operator do or do not to affect that, or do you just go screw it? It's not my problem. I mean, how do you get involved in that?
Good craft service.
Good craft service. Yeah. Anyone? Are you involved in that? Like the AD's freaking out because the day is falling behind? How do you?
Yeah, I think the time and time management is sort of all our problem. And when I was starting out with Steadicam, this isn't a story, I promise. I used to take a lot of time and make a real point of like, I need this to balance and I need this to be right and I need my space. And if you're going to ask me, it's going to be 5 more minutes. And like, it was like really, it was my own kind of insecurity with it. And now I try to honestly race through all of that, whatever it is, the configuration of the dolly, the handheld, this and that. Like, I want to spend as little time as possible. I want it done right and I want to set up for success, but I want to spend as little time as possible with that, because any time saved buys you something else. It's maybe another rehearsal, another walkthrough, and even if it's not in that scene, the sun will set at some point in that day. And if you burn all of your energy, they may give you, I've been on shows where they're very accommodating. If I ask for another take, if the dolly group asks for another take, not a problem. But you have to like weigh that, because it will eat up some chunk of time in the day. And if you know you're going outside for magic hour work and you're going to need that time or that rehearsal time, you kind of have to kind of account for that. So even if I'm not talking to anyone about that time specifically, you know, I'm trying to think about that. And if we run into a rub with it, or if I get some, you know, people, oh, we can put this down, or I can do this floor, this or that, or whatever. I'm like, let's just keep this simple, because when we get outside, we're going to need this half an hour. So
To add to that too, always think a step ahead. When I'm watching a match, I'm thinking how we're going to cover it. How many shots can I get off this floor that I'm going to do? So if I got to lay more now, because it's going to save me later, take that time to do it efficiently at the beginning, so you're not playing catch up later. So always try to think 1 shot ahead, 2 shots ahead.
By the way, you know what? I apologize, because Easy showed up from Los Angeles. He's an amazing dolly grip, and he happens to be here. So this is the guy who keeps answering these things, which is fantastic. I should have a chair, actually. I didn't introduce him, but yeah. Anyone else?
As B camera, I'm often leapfrogging to the next thing.
Yep.
So I'm getting sent ahead, but with way fewer people and resources. So I try really hard to kind of be my own AD in that scenario.
Mhm.
And I'll, you know, run and talk to, you know, the lighting department and costumes and props and like, okay, what do we need to do to, when everybody else comes over here, how can I be as ready as possible in that moment? And that's usually helpful in moving the day.
Anyone else have anything from in there?
Well, I think you can work with the AD as well. You know, to go look. Okay, we're falling behind. Okay, how can we make this move along? Like, what can we do? What, you know, is there something that needs to be cut, or you know,
Yeah.
you know, or let's send B camera outside, or you know, things like that. So I think it's, you know, you definitely have a purpose in all that.
Do you have
Chris
something?
made a good point, communicating with the AD. When you're an A camera operator on set, you have to think about set dressing, you have to think about props, you have to think about where the lighting and grip stuff is going. And the more you can anticipate all the things that need to happen, you can communicate with the AD to have all those things working at the same time. Get good at cheating. If the sun's going down, you might just move the camera this much and put the next actor there, and you've got your reverse without having to turn the whole world around. Little things like that you know how to do that you can offer to the DP and the director and the AD will save time.
Yeah, I think, I mean, personally, assuming that I have a good working relationship with the AD, which like everything else, the minute that you hit set, you're assessing everybody and everybody's assessing you. So don't think it doesn't happen. I will usually say, hey, how long do we have how long, when do you need to be out of the scene? And so I try to keep track of that. And if we're falling behind, I will do things like say to EZ if he's on the dolly, hey, let's throw the slider on here because I know we don't need it for this shot, but in 2 shots, I'm going to need to like do a push that's over there. We won't need to put down floor. So you're thinking ahead to go as best you can. And basically what it is it's not your problem that the day is falling behind, but you don't want to be the person that they're waiting on. So you want to go, I mean, you always want to be 4 steps ahead or whatever, but even more so, you just amp it up and you try to do that. And you try to just step in and like you said, anywhere you can save time, you whisper in the DP's ear, hey, I think that we can do this or we can do that. And if they take it, they take it. Secrets to holding the frame and correct headroom, or like someone standing up. You got any tips on that? Any of that stuff? Like at rehearsals, do you find key points or whatever to figure out where you're going to go, or you just wing it, or what do you do?
I think find some key points if there's something on a wall, like that height is that height, especially if someone's popping up or if it's a whip pan. Certainly rehearsals, if you can get them, help. And again, the communication with the actor is really important. That's where the thing is like, hey, dude, you're rocking out a frame. Can you just take off 10 or 20%? And generally, they will help you. So I think things like that are really helpful.
A lot of times with that, if you explain to the actor how tight the frame is, they'll understand how hard it is.
And show them because it's vanity.
Or
because it's a close up like that.
Or
I literally show them, and then they're like,
faster.
"Oh, it's my face on screen, 40 feet high." And
exactly. Yeah. And I'd love to show it.
Yeah. And that helps a lot.
Anyone else tips on any of that?
Yeah, it does help because if they're being really emotional on a tight lens, you're gonna actually lose some of that performance.
Yeah.
Because the camera's so erratic, and if they know that, they will want to take some off on their own without you having to ask them because they want their performance to read through.
Yeah. I mean, and one of the rather than asking the actors to do something different, one of the things you can do is go, hey, I'm this tight, and you just stand up, and I really want to make sure all that's on camera, and then they'll hopefully put the rest in there. But there are things like find a point on the wall where they stand up and the headroom is correct, and honestly forget about the stand up, and when they start, you just go and you go to that, and they'll be there. And then the other thing is I mean, you get better and better with headroom and things like that, but land it. Don't land it and then correct, and don't do the old, just land it. And if someone goes, why was that headroom? And you're like, I was going for like a Picasso. Make something up. But then do it better on the next one, and have the right piece of equipment. If you're not good on the wheels, put the fluid head on. And if you're better on the wheels, put the wheels on. But do the right piece of equipment. And I think those are some of the keys.
Pay attention to actors' tails. They all have tails when they stand up. They're sitting in a chair. Some guys will grab this. Sometimes their legs are uncrossed. They're gonna cross them back this way. When I'm watching rehearsals, I watch all of that so that I know when they're getting up. And they're usually gonna tell you.
And that's a good note, because on day one, I will start to watch the actors do things like standing up, even if that's not something I'm going to be doing in the scene. I'll try to assess what they do, because there's some, who will lean forward and stand up, and some who will push off the chair, and they'll do it consistently without even knowing. So then when the time comes, you're ready for that.
And it's learning their body language, and even when I was a focus puller, it's really important. Some people stand up, like you said, and they'll do this and then stand up, or they'll just shoot straight up, and they generally, those traits will be, that's what they do. It's not going to change. So, as you assess that over time, and it takes a little bit of time, maybe like the first 4 or 5 days, then you kind of figure out this is how this person moves, or they hit their mark, their feet are on the mark, but their head's a foot in front of it, so or the opposite. So it's just really kind of observing.
Yeah, landmarks are good, like we're talking about, like references within the frame, even just for finding like frames that you come into blind, like you have a frame and someone's going to walk in from a door or whatever, like once you get your headroom and everything set, you want to be able to get back to that, and so you put yourself in a position where you know what your frame is, even if it doesn't have the person in it. And then also just watching, like especially I see a lot of Steadicam, but I've certainly Dolly and stuff too, like some actors will lead like leaning, but they're not moving yet. They're not starting to actually go until you see their feet take a step. And so it's learning sort of just what you need to be looking for. And I mean,
I think the thing
body
about
language.
landmarks is interesting because I find when I start to think about it, especially in wider shots, I'm often not even looking at the actor because I know the actor's in the frame. I'm going for some sort of landmark situation or whatever. So there are a lot of times where I'm looking at those four corners and because I know the actor's where they have to be. So there are times.
And I think, Dave, all of this speaks to one of the meta skills of being a camera operator is observational skills.
Yeah.
Reading people, scoping out the room, actually making a map in your mind of the room, and then a mind map in relation your movement to the actor's movement in relation to the room. That all help you land stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and listening. Like you get a lot of information on a set in any position, but especially camera operating if you just listen. And sometimes people look at me like I'm crazy after a take. Like I'll give a note or something, and I'm just kind of standing there, and I'm like, no, I'm listening to a conversation the director and the actor are like having, and they're about to change his movement, and it's going to be different, and I want to know what that is.
They might not tell you.
They
And
often don't tell
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, no, you're constantly trying to get that information.
Yeah.
There's a Welsh saying that says you have two ears and one mouth, and you should act accordingly. I always thought that was really good. No, but that is true because you're literally sidling up, going, they're changing something, and nobody's going to mention it to me, and I'm going to be
Right.
expected to know it. So you find it out yourself.
Also, tell the other operator
Yes,
if you
and,
have
and by the way,
something
and tell the assistant.
and tell the assistant.
Maybe if your dog didn't catch it,
Yeah.
let them know, hey, they're going to do this or whatever.
Yeah.
They're going to come in running,
Yeah.
and they've been walking before, like that will impact it.
Yep.
Yeah, share with the rest of the
Yeah.
class.
Not a story, but a story. I was in New Mexico and we did take 4, and the actor who was young came running out of the thing, and so I pulled off to the side, and the actor followed me, and we all went down, and the Steadicam was broken in two, and thankfully everybody survived. But the director never mentioned to me that this actor, instead of walking out, was going to run. And the actor who was young didn't think to tell me. And when I started to do this, just assumed that the shot had changed and came at me. So yeah, these are important things to relate. Which, yeah. This is kind of an odd question, but how vocal should you be on set?
Read the room.
Read the room? So
Yeah.
does that mean be quiet or?
I mean, I think you have your own personality, and that, like, I think the best thing you can do is to be true to yourself, to be like honest with who you are. You don't like I have operator mentors and people that I look up to, and like ways I'd like to kind of conduct myself. But I also just the best thing you can do is just be yourself and be aware and respectful and kind and courteous, and you'll kind of get a sense of. It usually takes me a couple days to figure out like how much people want me talking or suggesting or kind of doing whatever. And sometimes it's a lot, and sometimes it's not a lot.
Yeah.
It just depends on a lot of the other personalities and egos and whatever you're doing.
Anyone else?
The best piece of advice I ever got was my first day on set from the camera operator. He said, ears open, eyes open, mouth shut. And you gain so much more from listening than from speaking.
Yeah.
But I've worked with amazing camera operators with totally different personalities. Some are real boisterous, take over a set. Some of them are quiet. They're like ninjas. You don't even know how they get everything done, but it's really impressive. So like Matt said, find your own personality, but you gain way more from listening than from speaking. And people are trying to work. They don't want to hear you chit-chatting about nonsense.
Yep.
They're trying to accomplish a mission.
I think like day one, your best bet is probably just to like assess the situation and be quiet, occasionally throw in a thought, but shut up. And then as you sort of start to read the room and you figure it out, because you've probably all been there. There are some days when it's raining or something or whatever, you got to be the cruise director a little bit and get people laughing and excited about work again. And there's some days where like other people are doing that to you and you're like, I'm quitting the business and I'm becoming an actuary. This sucks. And they're like, no, this is great or whatever. But so I think it fluctuates, and you got to constantly read the room and see it. And we've probably all been there. You work with a DP who the DP wants to be the voice in the room. You're going to lose that battle. So
Yeah.
you sit back and you go, all right, you're the voice in the room. You do what you, but you got to just make sure, however it is, I think the key to all this is you adapt. It's like every job is completely different. And even, by the way, jobs where I've worked with the same crew on another job, totally different, because the one thing will change, like one actor will change it, or it's dominoes. So does anybody else on any of that?
I mean, I think too, it's tough, especially when you're starting out and sort of establishing yourself. You want to build like I called it like your operator voice, and so like you want to like work on that and prove that like you understand that this is going to be edited and you understand how the gear works and this and that. But really like just being quiet and listening, but also thinking all that stuff and having a plan so that when you get asked the question, you have an intelligent, thoughtful response.
Yeah.
And people will know pretty quick that like, oh, okay, cool. Like, he's actually been paying attention and is really useful.
And I think that brings up another thing, which is when you're beginning operating, and when if you make the jump to A camera operating, where you're sort of driving the bus more, you want to make statements. You want to give information. You don't want to go, well, it was sort of. I mean, maybe it was. I don't really know. I mean, I guess like we could be like nobody has any confidence in it. It's I need another one because I clipped it.
Yeah, right.
Or no, it was great. Shot was. Let's move on.
Everything was great. I ruined the stand-up.
Yep.
If you're not going to use it, we're good to move on.
Yep.
If you need it, I'll do better next time.
And actually, someone once told me that your answer should be 5 words or less, which isn't always possible, but people just want information. They want fast information from you, and they don't want wishy-washy because they don't know what to do with that. They need to know what the answer
Yeah, is a shot good or is it not good?
is. It good or is it not good? And my favorite is always we need to go again. Why do you need to go? We just need to go again. Trust me, we could go right now. What was wrong with it? If we could just go again, and like the AC completely buzzed it, but you don't want to throw them under the bus. Dave, tell us why it was bad. It's just like, well, I don't really know. Or it's like, well, you cued them wrong. I don't want to say that out loud, but if you're making me say it, so yeah. Anyway, and by then you could have done 2 more takes.
Exactly.
And whatever. How do you're an operator? You're an up and coming operator. You aren't working, which of course nobody understands in this business.
Right.
What do you do in your off time to get better as an operator besides operating? Are there things that you can do? Are there things you can practice? Thoughts?
I think it's watch films.
Yeah,
or
be a
watch
filmmaker.
TV, and cause like you said, be a filmmaker, and look at films and what do you like about it? Do you like the framing? Do you like the operating, the lighting, whatever it may be? How it's cut? Is that shot a oneer that's awesome, or how whatever it may be, because that's information, and that's you're basically just translating that on another project somewhere. So look at great photographs and do you like the lighting? Do you like the framing? Read stuff. And anything that gives you knowledge, it's about storytelling, essentially.
And take photos, even if it's with an iPhone.
Yeah.
Anything that keeps that practice of framing up when you're not working.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Visualize scenes. Even this right here, I'm visualizing where my operator would want me to put my dolly as we were doing this. If this was a scene, always anywhere you're at, I always visualize scenes. So I put them into cinematic mode. That's where I'm at.
Briggs, you got anything?
Pretty much what Easy was saying, like visualize the scene, or like what Jessica was saying, like you may have kids, cousin, wife, and whoever, but if you're out having dinner or wherever, the kids running around the park, just take out your phone and like practice a little move or do whatever it is, because not only is it going to be valuable later to look at later, as looking back at the future of your kid or whoever growing up, but at least you have a good, solid, content and not like something vertical, something legit horizontal. Movie making in your hands.
Yeah.
It's interesting too. I've got 2 young kids now, and so it's like most of my photos are like little kids and the dog. And there's a ton of them, and I'm trying to like curate them because other family members, grandparents, whatever, want to see them. And I want them to be nice photos, and I want them to be good. Sometimes I'll take 10 photos of like the same sort of scene or something. And I've had this experience now where I keep coming back to like 9 times out of 10, the first picture that I've taken is the best one. And it's about like just trusting your instincts. And then you start to get into the weeds with like, oh, well, this is that, or I'll move around here or whatever. And so it's the goal for me now when I'm doing that is to just get it. And even if I take a couple of pictures, I want to go back and it's like to reinforce that, because it's the same thing on set as trusting yourself. It's like knowing like, yes, this is where I want the lens to be. No, this is supposed to be a little lower, a little higher, whatever. And you kind of have that now with the iPhones, like you're saying, like you have that feedback loop. So
yeah,
you can use it.
And yeah, you don't want to be that operator that moves the camera 20 times for that one position. You want to make a decision, and land it there.
It's an interesting point because I think the most important part of being an operator is knowing where to put the camera. Because you put the camera in the right place, everything works. If you put the camera in the wrong place,
Well,
you're going to have to figure it. It's not going to work. You're going to have to do another shot.
And,
Or
and
whatever.
it's trust your instincts, especially when you're starting out. That's hard
If you
because
have good instincts, trust your instincts. Do not trust your instincts.
you'll develop them.
Yeah.
I mean, and it really is crazy. Like I can't tell you how many times I've set something up and I'm like, this should just be a little lower. I'm like, but then I got to go to low mode or do this and that. And you're kind of hemming and hawing about it. And 9 times out of 10, director or DP will come over and be like, hey, what if we just went a little lower here?
Yeah.
Or what do you think? You're just like, But if it's already in progress or you've already done it, like it may not come up or like, oh, yep, that's got low modes coming in. Here we go. No problem. You know, like it's, you just got to trust your instincts and they'll serve you well and they'll get better the more you do it. But like if you're wishy-washy or you're kind of just trying to think, what would they want this? I mean, obviously you want it to be within the visual grammar that the director, DP, and you have established for the project you're on. But like, just you can defend something that you approach with conviction. But if you come to it like sort of half-hearted and unsure, that will read.
Yeah, that's a great. And actually, you brought up something that was interesting. If you're setting it up, and it's the shot is down here, and you're right at the bottom of the dolly boom, go ahead. If there's no other downside to it, just go. Hey, let's throw on low mode because I'm setting up the shot that they've asked for, but I'm also thinking of the shot that they may ask for, and I don't want to have to get a different piece of equipment suddenly because I didn't think ahead. So even like crane stuff, it's like, all right, this is the shot that we're doing. But I bet they're going to ask for this. So let's actually incorporate that. You're always thinking of that extra stuff. And sometimes it helps and sometimes it doesn't happen. But
One thing to add to that, think about lighting. One thing, you said it earlier, there's that one great spot. That one great spot is usually also because of the lighting. So we want to make sure that we're complimenting our DP, right? We don't want to get the one in trouble. We don't want to be the one that yell out, why are you putting a camera there?
one of the things I learned really early on is when I put a camera somewhere, I will often, I'll make sure there's nothing in the frame and do all that stuff that you do. And then I'll give it a minute and then I'll look back at it and I'll try to ask myself, why did I put the camera right there? What am I achieving by there? And if I can't answer that question, and sometimes it's stupid. It's like, well, I can see all the people or something like that. But if I can't answer that question, it usually means that there's probably something I could do that could be better, which maybe I'll accomplish or not. But it's just a way of checking yourself to go, have I done my job completely? So I think you're constantly assessing that. And even when you're doing the shot, sometimes you're like, God, I should have been lower. I should have been this. But the thing that I try to keep in mind is like, the movie isn't going to have those two shots side by side and say Dave wanted this one, but he didn't do it. If it works, it works.
It might.
So at the end of the day, that's what it is.
And every DP is going to have a different style from each other. So there's no right and wrong, but if you have your own opinion and convictions, at least that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
And you want to give them good frames, like cinematic frames. Like I was on a shot recently where it was like we matched it. This is the distance that we were on the other side, the closest. But people's bodies are different sizes. So you may be this far away from, this guy, but then this woman is really petite and you need to be a little closer or she just feels really small comparatively. And you're thinking about how they're going to cut back and forth. But we just had a frame and it just looked kind of odd. And I was like, well, we just need to push in a little bit. And then I went too far and I came back a little. I was like, this is a better looking frame. And, folks was like, we're a little closer here. And like DP comes over and all stuff like that. And I was just like, this is a nicer frame. I was like, we can back up. Yeah. I just think this looks better. And everyone's like, yeah, it looks better. Okay, great.
Yeah, because you can have like you said, you can have an actress that's like 5'1" and 100 pounds, and the guy across from her is 6'3" and 240. Yes, it may match, but it's not going to match.
The feeling matters more than the numbers do.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Dave, before we move on,
yeah.
Can I reference your shirt there?
Your comfort zone will kill you.
That's my main practice outside of work is I find things to make me uncomfortable and to push myself and put me under pressure because you're going to be put under pressure as an A-camera operator in a lot of situations and you won't have a choice but to execute. So the more you can do that outside of work, the more you trust yourself in those moments and you trust your decisions and the less you'll hesitate.
Yeah, there's a very zen thing that goes on. And I don't know about you guys, but I often will go to that point of like, Well, it's been a good run. This is probably the last shot I'm ever going to do because I'm going to get fired, but I'll give it the best I can. And I also know, like, if you've ever had this, like on the wheels, I've been operating on the wheels for 35 years. I will get on the wheels quite often. And as we are rolling, I'll look down and I'll go, I have no idea which way is up and which way is down. And you don't want to do that. And so you're sitting there, and then I realized that if I just go, I wonder if I let the dog out and the shot starts, I'll do it. So sometimes you actually have to force yourself to get outside of your head to do the job and just go, I have the instincts to do this and it's going to work, and just trust. And hopefully.
I also think, like, I sort of jokingly say this on set, but if I'm comfortable doing a shot, it's probably not a good shot. And it's not 100% true, but it kind of is. There's, like, if you're putting the camera somewhere you're comfortable, it's probably a very ordinary position that you see every day in life. And the things that are more cinematic and more dynamic are either a lot closer to someone, closer to a wall, down low, down high, like in a different position. And those are often, like, you find yourself crammed in a corner next to the other camera, like, for whatever reason it is. And it tends to make, like, a better frame. Like, it's just, you know, being okay with being uncomfortable with it. And I don't want to confuse it with not setting yourself up for success. You don't want to put yourself in a position where you can't execute the shot because you've twisted yourself around and you can't make the pan now, or you can't see the monitor or the eyepiece or whatever. But within that, like, I find if I'm kind of scrunched or straining or hunched or half over, like, okay, yeah, this is probably where the camera needs to be.
Yeah.
Whereas if I'm standing comfortably and have the seat on the dolly position, everything is probably garbage, you know?
The interesting thing that I've found, and I wonder if whether anybody else has found this, is I've found that when I have compound shots and complicated shots, the more that I hone them and the simpler they become, the better the shot tends to be. And it's not I'm not saying that to counter what you said, because
No,
I
that's a good
totally
point.
agree with that. But sometimes I find that the more I do it, it just goes, well, I don't actually have to do that little part because this falls in. It's like the more you think of it, it's better storytelling almost sometimes when it becomes simpler from those point of views. So it's like there are all these different. Have you guys ever found that? I don't know.
Yeah, I totally
Yeah.
have. And I don't mean it to sound like it has to be, like, awkward to be good, but just that, but there's a bit of, like, just pushing yourself a
Yeah.
bit more, not being complacent or too comfortable. Is
Well,
what
I think
mean.
you were also talking about, like, the interesting frames tend to be the ones that are harder to get to.
Yeah.
Like, way down low or way up high or right against
But yeah,
the wall.
simplicity
Yeah.
usually, like, wins. And, like, if it's something is really complicated and, like, it's harder to repeat, and it's hard. It doesn't mean good shots can't be complicated. Also, sometimes shots are really complicated to execute and they look really simple
Yeah.
on screen. And sometimes shots are really simple. Oh, this is just a little dolly back, boom down, or just up, have to turn on the wheels. And people are like, well, how did you do that?
Yeah.
And you're like, you look at the dolly, you're like, I don't know. Yeah.
I said the ones that are the hardest looking are the easiest for us to do. The ones that look simple are the hardest for both of us.
Yeah.
Well, and
Yeah.
making them look simple is
Yeah.
the hard.
Yes.
But Chris and I, being older operators, I can call us that, right?
Yeah.
Can point out that when they do get to be those ones that are uncomfortable, you know, this is a great B camera shot. This is going to be wonderful. I'm going to be over there in the back of the truck, but I think you're going to like that.
It's funny. But that's a good point. That's how I started moving from when I was doing indie films, from assisting to operating. As I had a DP friend of mine who didn't want to be crammed into the bathtub under the faucet,
go.
looking up, and he's like, "Matt, do you want to do this shot?"
Yeah.
I was like, "I sure do."
Yeah.
But it's a great way to kind
There's
of,
a
like,
reason
get
for
into
that.
that.
Yeah.
I've been in so many trunks, refrigerators, closets, cabinets, but also it's always great to pitch those places. If it's an A camera only shot and you're on B and like, we don't need it, and you find something really cool from one of those places,
Yeah.
it's always worth it just to pitch it. Like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we did this?
I'll tell you, one of my favorite things in the world, which is always also the thing that I hate, is I'll do some Steadicam shot that's like, I'm in the helicopter and I step off onto the roof and I come down as the FBI guys are kind of, it's like this 12-minute shot. And then the B camera operator's like, I'm going to sit here in the sink and capture the shot. I'll look at it and I'm like, that's so much better than what I'm doing. But it's because, like, you know, they've given you something and they're like, go find something cool. And then the good B camera operator is finding just like the amazing thing that ties everything together.
And then they
the
use the first bit of your Steadicam shot.
Exactly
That way.
Yeah.
Exactly right. So I'm going to ask Jessica and Briggs this question first and then throw it out to everybody else. Should the A operator be involved in designing other camera shots?
My first reaction is to say no, but that's
Okay.
very selfish. I think if there's something that they're thinking of and they know, like, hey, we need this piece of coverage, I've thought it all through, great, perfect. But I think if they're setting up their own shot, kind of let the B camera operator do their thing, if at all possible.
But that's explaining what they're thinking they should get. Should they be telling you how to execute it, do you think?
In my opinion, no.
This is a safe space.
And again, I think like if they, and oftentimes they do know a better way, great. I'm always open to suggestions. I love that. But I think knee-jerk reaction shouldn't always be, let me tell you how to do it.
Yeah. Briggs?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a slippery slope. I mean, they can tell you maybe how to execute it, but no matter what, you're going to put your own, sauce on it. You're going to do however you want to do it. And you can make them think that you're going to do exactly what they say. That's the key thing. Yeah, that's the key thing. Oh yeah, no problem. I'll do that. They might be suggesting, hey, I found a shot of you over there in a hi-hat. You might be thinking, well, what if I get in trouble? I don't want to be in a hi-hat. Hey, let me get a slider. Because that's how you cover your ass. Like that's kind of what you have to think about, because sometimes the other operator's not thinking that. They just saw a cool angle. That's going to cut with this. Okay, well, what if they don't hit their mark? You can move a little bit next take or whatever it may be. So if they set up a shot and you agree to the shot, then, do the shot. But if you are going too slow or too fast, then I would say trust the operator, because they might have these conversations with the DP, the director, and they know the pace of certain things that maybe you weren't in on the meeting in the morning. Maybe you missed something. Maybe they talked about something in pre-production that you have no clue about.
And to the folks who are doing A more, are you involved in the B camera operator shots, or do you let it go? Or
I mean, I think you're all involved in each other's shots, and I think like a good point is that like being a B camera operator, I mean, the dynamic between B and A can really depend on a show. There are shows where they're basically equal footing, and the director, DP, whatever, just want like two good usable shots, and there's not one that's going to always trump the other. And then there are some shows that are super heavy-handed A, and like if there's a place, if there's time, if there's whatever, will work B, and for whatever reason that's the mode. And I think once you sort of understand that construct, depending on what it is, if I'm doing A, I will don't confuse the position of B, though it's different and maybe not as vocal or as loud on the set, as far as getting involved in conversations and things. It doesn't mean those conversations aren't also being had between the A and B or A, B and C operators or whatever, and you want to sort of work in tandem and work together. And B and C dolly grip, same thing. You guys are all everyone's supporting everyone else, and being a B operator or B dolly grip or whatever doesn't mean being weak or not good. Actually quite the opposite. You want someone who's amazing, who is strong, and who is confident, who you can have them come in and you're not afraid to let that shot be important, or let also if I'm working with a relatively new B operator or something, or someone who's new to me, I will at the beginning of the show make a point of I may suggest something, but not to tell them how to do it, to just say this is a low thing. You could be on a spider hat or a high hat here, but there's room if you want the dolly, however you want to do it, slide, whatever is going to work for you, just so I'm not going to get in your rice bowl about it or whatever, to give them the confidence to choose the tools that they think they're going to want and need. And they might find something better than what they,
It's such an important relationship, and you have to help each other out. Aaron and I did a show together, and we got coffee beforehand, and it was, how do you like to work? How do you like to work? And we figured all that out before the show even started.
That's great.
And it went beautifully after that. So I think it's just, you're kind of in it together, and any way you can figure out how to make it work for both cameras, the better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you're all part of a whole, and you're all going for the same goals to, how do we make this scene better? What can we add value? Yes, it says this, but how can we make it better? And I think, again, it's experience level, but if you're an experienced B person, it's not like you're this lower position. You're in a real integral part of getting coverage that the A camera's not getting, and saving time.
And often a harder shot, for you, for the
Absolutely.
focus puller. I mean, you may be on this wide static or whatever or something, and then or just some little crane up or whatever, and B's got some complicated dolly move on a long zoom that's got a bunch of different points and hidden focal length changes and all this stuff, and that's a harder shot to execute. and like you're given a little less time and a little less, whatever for it.
I had a thing. It's a story, but it's not a story. I was doing Entourage, and that whole show was handheld, and I was doing B, and we had this one scene where the director really boxed his day into a corner, and he had like 30 minutes to get this 5-page scene. He really screwed himself. And I watched a few of the rehearsals, and like he told A camera what to do, and he looks at me and he's like, "I don't know what you're gonna do." And I go, "I'm gonna get you all your coverage." And he was, "What?" And he walked away, and we did 2 takes, and one take I did some coverage, and the second take I did the other coverage, and we got the entire scene in 2
But
takes.
again, going back to the beginning, because you were thinking about the edit.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, that's especially B camera. That's what you're doing. Like these, like I may blow this entire take, but this 20 seconds is going to make this entire shot work.
Yeah.
And I've done so many shots on B where I'm excited about it. It's gone well, and the DP comes over and like, I wasn't watching. How was it?
Yeah.
It was great. You'll see it
Yeah.
later. Don't worry.
Yeah. And actually, so that's a good question that I'll segue into. You're doing a shot, and in the middle of the shot, an elephant walks through the background, which is not in the movie, and they cut. Do you mention it, or do you assume that everybody else saw the elephant, or what do you do?
Man, it's changed. Like with film, you definitely mentioned it because you were the only one that had the real view of it. Nowadays, like even as good as these new eyepieces and onboard monitors are, like people are watching in bit tent some really like fancy $30,000 screens and stuff. And so you hope they see it, but the reality is they're not looking for it. Like your job as an operator is to, is to see all that stuff. And again, that's part of too, also like the A, B, like C operator relationships. Like I mean, just philosophically, I feel like if you treat everyone like with respect and are inclusive and everything, when you miss something, someone else, if they catch it, is going to kind of, "Hey, did you see that thing over there?" I'm like, "Oh God, no. When did that? I didn't know they put like, craft service there." And they're right in the middle of your frame. You're like, "How did that happen?" And it's like, kind of just, yeah. I don't know. I think you have to speak up, but again, it's read the room,
Yep.
If it's a problem that's not going to repeat itself, or if it's a mistake that is quickly remedied and they're cutting for another reason, you maybe don't need to make a big deal about it.
Yeah.
Other times we've had things where like literally like rolled over a cable on the dolly and there's a big bump or some other craziness, and everybody's like, "What?" Like, "Yeah, we had a little technical. Just go again on that."
Yeah. I think it's your responsibility to bring it up. You assume that people saw it, so I would immediately get off the dolly and go into the DP and go, "You guys saw the elephant, right? We're cool with the elephant?" Because they're like, "No, I was on Amazon buying home goods or something like that. What was this?" Like, "There's an elephant in the back of the." "Oh, we can't use that." But the other thing is because if you don't, they've already pre-lit and they're like the camera's already rolling on to the next scene. And the weird thing is that for me, you have to get used to is sometimes you'll go in and be like, "Yeah, of course I saw the elephant. What do you think, I'm an idiot?" And you're like, "No, it's my job, and I'm just making
Inform you.
And there's always that thing with me where you're like, you'll say, "Hey, we got a flyaway here. Maybe they should do it." And Harold Mako will come and be like, "Yeah, we're watching too." Or then other times they'll go, "Oh, thanks for telling us." And it's like, well, which one is it?
Right.
And it changes throughout the day.
It happens with the boom often as well. If you say something versus if you don't say something, they're annoyed, but always say something because it's just in case.
Also, how you say it.
Yes, there's absolutely a good way of speaking.
Frame it in a form of a question, and then all of a sudden it's someone else's idea, and they get to go tell the AD.
Yep. Again,
and you're out of the line of fire.
All that stuff. These are all tricks of the trade. There's no question. Working with boom operators. Thoughts? Ways to work with a boom operator? Good stuff? Bad stuff? Way you can tell. For day one whether the boom operator knows what they're doing.
If I don't know who he is or who she is, if I don't even see them, they're fantastic. It's the truth. And then literally, I've been on shows and 10 days later, you're like, "Who are you?"
Sound?
I'm Richard. And I was like, "Dude, I don't even see you."
That's a good point.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, getting ahead of it is always good too, especially if it's someone who you don't have as much confidence in. You say like, "Hey, you want me to walk you into this frame before we ever start?"
Yeah.
Like, "Okay, keep coming. Nope, it's good there." So getting sort of ahead of that, if it's possible, is often a way to sort of, mitigate any problems.
And offering to help, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to be here with you on
Yes.
this.
Well, that's the thing. I feel day one, it's the same. I feel about, especially when I'm doing a camera with like hair, makeup, whatever. Like I make a point of introducing myself, and letting them know like we're on the same team with the same end goal. And I'm always like, hey, if you ever need a frame line, let me know. And then, hey, and the other big thing I always ask for, like, do me a favor, if you ever have a plant mic, especially like in cars and stuff, just come up to me and tell me where it is and that you've got one. Like, I know you may think we're not going to see there, or we may not turn around, but like little black fuzzy microphones blend into fuzzy car interiors, like really in the, well, and all of a sudden, you're shooting something you shouldn't be. And so you kind of just start that dialogue and have that relationship. And when you really get down to it, it's crazy watching like behind the scenes with like some shot you're winding through dollies and stuff, and how the booms get in and out of the way and do this and that. And it's an art and a craft, and it's incredible. And if you ever watch dailies without sound, or just shut the sound off on a movie, which is a good exercise actually we're talking about for like looking at framing and stuff. Go put on like The Insider or something and shut the sound off and just watch. Like, you'll really become hyper aware of the frames and the editing. But it's also really like boring and unwatchable in a lot of ways too. And it's like sound is there for a reason, and it's an important part of it. And if you're there and collaborative and kind of fighting for them to get what they need, they're probably going to look out and appreciate that and be on your side when you need something too. Whether it's a little more space because you're getting like hitting a wall with the dolly, and you just can't have them there. Like, that's all right. I've got them on the wires here. They're okay with that, or whatever. Whereas again, it's just someone you can kind of form an alliance with.
Sure.
And there's times to keep in mind, like, if A is really wide, if I'm pitching a really tight shot, that completely messes up sound.
Yep.
So being kind to them and knowing what they need is important too.
Yeah.
And if it's someone that's newer and not as experienced, make sure they're watching rehearsals so they make their mistakes during the rehearsals and not during a take.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because there's plenty of times where you're setting up this compound move and you're doing this, you're doing that, then you're ready to go, and then they're like, "Well, where's sound?" And then they come in like, "Oh, they have no clue what you did."
Yeah.
So try to be aware if you're doing something complicated. Like, look who's in the room and observe, like, and make sure that person's in there, because whether it's rehearsal, you're going through your numbers, whatever it is, and just make sure that they're present. And often, like, you'll know throughout the show or the feature, whatever it is, if that boom operator is good, because they will keep dipping. They'll keep dipping. Usually the great one's going to be talking to you. Hey, tell me what my frame line is. Am I good? Am I good? Am I good? Then they'll figure it out. They'll be talking to the mixer, and they figure it out on their own. But just make sure you know who they are. Make sure they, just communicate.
Yeah. Greg?
All of that is great advice.
Yeah.
Advocate for sound, because then they'll be your friends. If you can tilt down a little bit and no one's going to notice, tilt down for them if they're jammed up in a light. If the DP is putting lights from every corner and there's shadows everywhere and they're screaming at sound, just be like, hey, they're working it out.
Yep.
There's shadows everywhere. If they're not there for rehearsal, before you start the rehearsal, ask the AD, does sound want to participate in this rehearsal? That's a gentle way of reminding them that they should come know what's going on. If you have a static frame, it's a wide shot and a tight shot at the same time, you can say, hey, we do this all the time. Let them put the boom at the top of the wide frame. It's a still frame. All you got to do is create a window. They can paint it out. They will love you for that.
Yep. Yeah. This is all great stuff. I would say my thing is on day one, first rehearsal, I'm not watching the rehearsal most of the time. I'm looking at everybody else. I'm watching to see if the boom people are over there going like this or something like that, or if they're in the room. I'm looking to see what second team is doing, if they're taking notes, and because I can immediately go, okay, this is who I got to keep an eye on. This person is doing whatever. But yeah, working with the boom operators is critical. And I think in a weird way, I think mentally in the first day or so, I try to very vocally do something that tries to help them. Like I'll go, hey, you can come down much lower on this frame. I'm not going to go up to row, really, because then it's a cheat, but it's letting them know, like, I actually think that what you're doing is important, and helpful. And the best boom operators, like you said,
You don't notice them, yeah.
You don't notice them, and they're fantastic. And the worst ones, and the worst thing in the world is you work on a show with someone great. And then you work on a show with someone who isn't, and you're like, why is this so much harder? And you realize it's because the other person was as good as they are.
Yeah.
But they're part of your crew, and
Yeah, they're in
That's
the
not gonna
trenches with
succeed
you,
without-
the dolly grip, the focus puller, your second AC. Like there's a like a handful of people that are really there, like in the thick of it, and having them as an ally and friend is huge. I mean, day one, I'll tell them, I'm like, also, I was like, if you ever need a rehearsal to figure something out because it's really complicated for you, whether it's Steadicam or dolly or something, I was like, always ask.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm happy to try to accommodate it.
Yeah, yeah,
And-
especially in an era where they don't do
Yeah, well,
rehearsals.
and usually if it's that
Guessing.
complicated, where assuming like a pretty capable boom operator like needs a rehearsal for it, like you probably need one too. Like it's not going to be just a simple like,
Exactly.
hey, we're just kind of here thing.
Assuming they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And you mentioned something about plant mics. What I always do the first day, as I go up to the boom operator, I go, listen, just as far as plant mics are concerned, if you tell me where it is and I see it, that's my fault. If you don't tell me where it is and I see it, that is your fault. So just tell me every time, and you're covering yourself, and then it's on me. And 9 times out of 10, they're like, oh, that's super simple. Yeah, I don't want to take it. So yeah,
I'm
easy.
going to give you one reason why I also bring that. Sometimes when you're doing dialogue back and forth, they can give you cheat notes of where the
Watch
next
the boom.
dialogue frame is coming.
Yep.
So they can be your friends too, definitely, and help you out, because sometimes you get caught up on waiting them to finish that dialogue, not knowing when to
Yep.
go over.
No question. Briggs?
Yeah, like I was saying before, always communicate with them, because there's going to be times where you might be doing a stand up. Then the director may say, no, what, never mind about the stand up, or vice versa. So there might be you weren't doing the stand up, and next thing you know, you forgot to communicate, hey, I'm doing the stand up. You told your AC, you told your dolly grip, but you forgot to tell sound. Next thing you know, you tilt up, and then there's the boom.
Yeah.
You know, I had no idea they were going to do that. And then next thing you know, they're not that cool with you after that,
Yeah.
especially if you do it more than once.
And by the way, if that happens, afterwards you go, I screwed you.
So, yeah,
I'm
it's
so
my
sorry.
fault. Yeah, I should have told you.
I didn't tell you or whatever. And on the flip side, take 3, the other boom comes in and starts standing next to you. Yeah, it's frustrating because something new is happening, and like but they're probably just as frustrated because they've got thrown into it. So usually I'll go, hey, look, just so you know, when he says this, we're going to come over there, so be careful, and try to give them as much information as possible because they're not out there going, hey, I think on take 3, I'll just go in for the hell of it. They've been sent in,
For a reason,
For a reason. So I want to talk about crew safety because we're in the thick of it. How involved in that are you as an operator? What do you think your role in it is? How do you advocate for it?
I think it's a really important role, and I think you have to look out for the people that are working with you, because a lot of people aren't, and I think sometimes even people aren't thinking about their own safety sometimes.
Yeah.
And if you see something, like say they want to put a camera in a position that's extremely dangerous, you have to stand up and go, we're not going to do that, or we'll make it a remote head. There's no reason to put a human being there.
Yeah.
And I think I've done a lot of stunt stuff and a lot of dangerous stuff, and I think it's a very important thing to really look out for your people around you, the crew around you, and obviously yourself. But I think it's something that you shouldn't have to be afraid to be vocal about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think to Chris's point, like obviously you want to protect yourself and you want to go home intact, but like really, I find that like we really do look out for each other more than anything, because you kind of get tunnel vision and you lose track of where you are, but someone standing just off to the side, like the B dollar group may say, Matt, that seems kind of dangerous where you are. Like you got no exit if you need it here, if this car doesn't hit its mark or something like that. And you're just like, oh yeah, that's not good. And then also if you're on a show, especially if there's a big show with a lot of, Chris and I have done these big like action units and stuff, and there's a big hierarchy. Like if you're the A operator, you can take the hit and be in a position to advocate for like, yeah, no, we need to take 10 minutes and put a remote head here, where like the day player D or E operator might not feel like they have the confidence to come in and sort of say that. And so the onus is on you to kind of be looking out for that.
And I think the other thing that's really important, especially with something like Matt was saying, if there's a lot of pyrotechnics or stunt driving or whatever it may be, go up to that driver, especially if you know them, or go up to the pyrotechnics guy and like, my camera's there, what's safe?
Yeah, I always ask.
Where are you standing?
Yeah.
Seriously, and also like, with drivers, like how fast you're going to go when you hit that ramp. He's like, I'm going to hit it at 35. And if you know that driver and trust them, they're going to hit it at 35. If it's some new guy you don't know, they may hit it at 60, and suddenly where your camera was safe is no longer safe anymore. So, communicate with those people too, because they'll be like, where's your camera? It's like, it's over there. Like, that's not a good place for it. So I think you really have to look out for yourself, and don't just listen to the AD, what he says. Go talk to those people because they're going to know what's safe for you or not as well.
It's also really easy to get tunnel vision when you're looking through the eyepiece or looking at the monitor and you're only caring about the frame in that moment. So having, yes, being far enough away and establishing a safe spot to begin with, but also having your dolly grip looking out for you and people who you know can grab you if something changes and you wind up in a position that's not as safe as you thought it was.
I mean,
I always have an escape plan for my operator, so that they never have to take their eye out of the eyepiece. So I either put a belt on them. So we'll talk about it prior to the shot of going. If something goes wrong, you're going to film me. Leave everything behind. I'm grabbing you and going. So we always talk about it first.
The equipment doesn't matter. The people matter, but the equipment never matters.
Yeah. Anyone else?
I say, yeah, like, I mean, I'm here today, and in one piece, the dolly grips have saved my life like several times. Different things, like pulled me out of a burning building that wasn't supposed to be on fire yet. Like pulled me out of the way of an oncoming motorcycle. The stunt driver veered too. He had an escape plan, but like we'd done a shot, this complicated choreographed thing, and we were on one lens, and you program yourself for it. And as soon as we changed focal lengths, I put myself in the wrong position because I'm thinking of a different frame, and all of a sudden I'm like in the line of fire, and you just really, And then I'll too what Dave said, like talk to anyone, talk to the armorer, talk to this pyrotechnics specialist, talk to the stunt driver, talk to the stunt coordinator. Like you can also get a lot of information about like where a better angle or a cooler shot or what's gonna, like they might have this idea of this is going to be a great thing, but then you talk to the guys that have done the test on the effect and see this now, but actually over here this might be kind of nice or low, and it'll be in backlight and you'll be whatever, and everyone's like, oh yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. I think these are all great. I mean, I think especially as the A camera operator, you have to advocate and you have to be willing to take the hit, because sometimes you have to go, this isn't safe, and a lot of people are going to be upset at you. The way I try to best get around that is when you are setting up the shot is not the time to bring that up. When I read a script, I circle things, driving, house explodes, whatever. And I, ahead of time, start talking to people. How are we doing this? What is the plan? Are we getting a remote head? Whatever. Because if you have the ability to do it safely ahead of time, when you get there on the day, there's no problem. It's when you get there on the day that things happen. I would be very careful of people who say, oh, we do this all the time. And you're like, really? You have 4 fingers. I'm not too comfortable with this. But I've heard that so many times. And it's like, my uncle smoked all the time. It didn't work out well for him. Like all the time is not the answer. And I think that, part of being a camera operator is going, I'm here to advocate for the people who I have asked to put me here. My dolly grip, my AC, well, AC is now 40 feet away, but whatever, anyone else, the second AC who's slating, any of those things. I think you have to take that hit. And I also will always say to those people, hey, I can get tunnel vision and get excited about the shot. So if you see something I'm doing stupid, tell me or call it out. Like, we're all in this together and we all have a different viewpoint. So I think all those things are really important. And the big thing with stunts, especially, that I always do, but the weird thing is I think sometimes the things that aren't stunts are more dangerous when they can go wrong. I mean, if you look at sets, they're inherently dangerous. If you look at a dolly, and we're here at Chapman, they're fantastic. But if something were to be in the wrong place, the crushing power of that dolly is pretty impressive. I've never heard of anybody having that problem, but it's just like we work around big machinery. So I always sort of go, okay, I understand what's happening if it goes right. What is happening if it goes wrong? And that's always the big concern for me. And one of the things that I've gotten into more recently with big stunts is I actually don't have my dolly grip on me to pull me out. I ask for a stunt person to. And I go, there's no reason, that is your specialty to understand what this stunt is, and I would rather it be on you than on my dolly grip, who is fantastic, but why am I putting them in this situation? Let's limit it as much as possible. And but I've had myself saved by dolly grips numbers of times.
Too. I've also turned around and everyone else ran away.
Yeah. And I'm sorry about that. I said I was sorry about that.
Really, thanks to everybody.
Yeah, but
so you got to look out for yourself. You really do.
Yeah, and I think everybody gets excited about getting the shot, but you have to step out. Part of your job is to step outside of that and go, all right, let's all be adults about this and talk about what could go wrong.
And I think Dave made a really good point that a lot of times, especially when I've seen people injured badly, it's not when it's this gigantic, super dangerous stunt, because
It's
I think
rarely that.
people are so hyper vigilant generally. It's usually something that seems super simple, like some drive-by or something, and something just goes wrong and no one's like super vigilant because it doesn't seem that dangerous, and that's mostly when I've seen people get hurt.
And actually, to that note, there was a movie years ago that a DP friend of mine was on, and it was a simple shot of a car pulling up and stopping in front of the camera. He was on a hi-hat, no big deal. car's not going fast, and the guy's supposed to get out of the car. Comes up, stops. Sorry, it's a story. Stops, but it's safety, so it's okay. So stops, and he doesn't get out of the car, and they're waiting, and they're waiting, and they're waiting. He put the brake on, he put it into park, and he had a heart attack. I would have never thought of that, but that is a moving vehicle that's coming at your camera. Why put a remote head there? Put a locked off camera there. So now anytime a car is pulling up close, I go, or put it on the dolly, so at least the dolly is there to stop it.
Yeah.
But it is because people are hyper vigilant about the big effects because of lawyers and because of what it is and whatever, and it's the simple stuff that actually becomes the
the most dangerous piece of gear on set, I'm convinced, and it's essential because you couldn't make modern movies without it, is the lift gate on our trucks.
Yeah.
I've injured myself and seen more people injured with lift gates.
Yep.
I mean, they are amazing and they are super helpful, but boy, are they slippery in the rain and they are hard to see at night in the dark. And these carts, camera carts can be pushing 1,000 pounds, and grip electric carts get into the ton range, and dollies, and you can't stop it if a lift gate tilts or takes a hit or the truck bumps. I don't care who you are, physics is not on your side, and you will go down. Yeah. And again, it's a thing, we just deal with it every day, so we don't have safety meetings about it, we don't do whatever. So
also, the more exhausted everybody gets, and the later it is at night, the more mistakes we make.
Or people are rushing, and also getting back to some stunt stuff, like things like, don't sit on an apple box if there's a car driving at you, or even just if it's doing a close drive-by.
Yep.
Make sure you're on your feet so you can run, because that half second may save your life. And make sure there's not a bunch of camera people that don't need to be there behind you. Guys, this is not safe. If I'm putting myself at risk, but you don't all have to be at risk.
Yeah, who needs to be here?
Or look at some PA standing somewhere, hey, dude, you shouldn't be over there.
Yeah.
Well, like Easy said, you have an exit, and that may be asking the seconds, hey, can we move these on-set cases just kind of out of the way, or pull that lens card away so that if I need to go, I have somewhere to go, and I'm not running into a bunch of gear trying to get out of whatever it is.
But again, that's what's thinking, what will happen if this goes wrong?
Yeah. Which it was a good point, because the question I generally ask, I actually always ask, go up to the stunt driver or the explosive guy or whatever it may be, and go, what is the worst case scenario that can happen?
There you go. Yeah.
And that is the question. Yeah. And they'll say, well, and this was an actual occurrence. It's I'm going to jump over that truck. I'm going to land, probably snap my steering column, and I won't have any control of that car, and I'll probably be heading right at you.
Oh, good.
That was handheld. I said, well, how fast are you going to go? He's like, I'm going to hit it at 35. He's like, okay, I'll have enough time. I did my own assessment, but I'll have enough time to get out of the way at that speed. And I knew this driver very well. I knew he wasn't going to hit it at 60. And he did. He did a thing. He came right by me. And he came up to me, he's like, yeah, my steering column snapped. But the trajectory of where he was heading, I knew he wasn't going to change direction midair. So, he landed very close to me, but he landed there. But, what happened was exactly what he said was going to happen. Yeah. And that's really the question to ask, you're blowing up a car, is the hood chained to it? Because that can be a projectile that can fly 200 feet and kill somebody.
Again, what might happen that we're not expecting? I would suggest that anybody who hasn't, go to the local 600 safety page. You can just Google that. There's a video that we made on gun safety. There's a video we made on free driving. There's a bunch of how to advocate for yourself. There's a bunch of really good safety stuff on there.
Also, always say yes to safety gear. As hard as it is in the heat to have a Fernie pad wrapped around you with a face shield, anything you can do to protect yourself, the better.
I'm going to throw out a hypothetical, which has never happened in the history of the film industry, but the director and the DP seem to want something different from each other. And each one of them has come up and asked you for what they want different. And maybe even after the director came and asked you for what he wanted, the DP came back and said, if you do that, you're fired. So what do you do in the situation where mom and dad, or mom and mom, or dad and dad are not getting along well together? Not that any of us have ever experienced this.
I think I'd go to the DP and go, this is what the director asked me to do. What do you want to do? And let them sort it out.
Hope that they have the emotional intelligence to
deal with it.
Yeah.
And not, so you're not just caught in the middle of two opposing opinions, because it's just a lose-lose situation there.
Yeah.
You have to, confront it in some way.
Jessica?
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Anyone else?
I've actually been in the position where a director has asked me to do something, the DP has asked me to do something else. The DP was the one that hired me.
Right.
So I did what the DP asked. The director came, yelled at me in front of everyone, and then the DP came out and said, why'd you do that? I can't believe you did that." So I would say,
So it has happened.
so get them to talk to each other,
Yeah.
but don't fall on your sword in that situation.
Yeah.
You say, you have one idea, you have another idea, you guys come to
Yeah.
a consensus,
Yeah, what do you want me
and
to do?
tell me
What do you
what
want me to do? And 9 times out of 10, what I'll do is I'll go, look, I know I should be smarter and be able to figure this out, but I just can't figure. Like you make yourself be the patsy, and you're like, I think we just got to come to some symbiosis, blah, blah, blah. And invariably one of them will be like, I don't know, do what they want to do or whatever. And at least you got some. I mean, you're probably not going to come out of that unscarred,
But you can minimize the
you can
damage.
minimize the damage.
And I think it's like Matt said way earlier about just not being wishy-washy about something.
Yeah.
Because it is a problem, and you just have to confront it head on.
Yeah.
And the more you do that, it's going to help alleviate the problem.
And if it's a continuing thing, I will usually take the DP off when we're not on set, text them and go, hey, can we talk about this? And like, what do you want me to do moving forward? Because I'm in a really tough situation and I can't be like, something has to happen. How can I help make this better? Whatever. And sometimes you just got to realize that you're going to lose, unfortunately. And I've been in that situation and it sucks, but it's not your fault. It just is what it is. Anything else?
Yeah.
Bruce?
I'll say that's actually one of the things I usually ask during my interview process.
Do you
Because
hate
it
the
happens
director?
every single time. Every show, it's going to happen. So you let the DP know, what do you want me to do when the director comes whispers in my ear? Go with them or let you know, what do you want me to do? Usually they just say, let me know. So don't be
Yeah.
afraid to hop off the dolly, whatever it is. Go or ask your assistant to ask because they got a radio and the DIT has a radio, whatever it is. But make sure you ask because there's a lot of times the director mid-take will come down and whisper in my ear, okay, now tilt down or whatever it is. And like, oh, shit. I know I'm going to get in trouble for it, but okay. Director told me to tilt down mid-shot. And they can't really blame me for that because they understand it was mid-take. You couldn't say anything. You kind of asked out at that point. So, but just cover your ass and make sure if the director tells you to do one thing, let the DP know.
Yeah.
Yeah, is this okay? Is it okay to pan over here?
Let them know.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Because we're here at Chapman, and Izzy, please jump in on this. You show up on a show, you're handed a dolly grip that you've never worked with before. It comes with the key grip or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You have no experience with them. How do you start that relationship? What do you expect that they know what they're doing? Do you expect that they don't? How do you figure out if they do? How do you establish that connection that is so important for what we do?
I've been in a lot of cities where I get somebody that has had very little experience. And I think as long as they're willing to try, then I'm fine with it. If they have an attitude, that becomes a problem. But I don't mind if someone doesn't know because I can teach them. And I think it's having patience and going, look, it's not just about moving from A to B. That's not the shot. This is what the shot's about. And I want to do this, and I want you to do this, and explain, like she said earlier, this is why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And then they kind of understand what the shot is. And over time, they start to learn what the shot is as opposed to just like, I'm just pushing a dolly back and forth. Because the great dolly grips, like him, they're filmmakers, and that just takes experience. And sometimes you're in a smaller town or smaller city, and you don't get the amazing A guy, or they don't want to pay to bring Easy in or somebody like that. And so I think you have to have some patience with it, and make sure they understand why you're doing things and explain why you're doing things, and you're actually helping teach them. I've done that. I did it in Chicago, and by the end of it, he's like a great dolly grip in Chicago.
That's
Well, I assume that they do know because it's good going in that way. But if they don't, simplifying moves can happen and adding sliders can happen. But like you said, I mean, I've watched dolly grips get better from the beginning to the end of a show, which is cool to watch. But yeah, open communication, talking through why we do the things we do. And if you need a couple extra rehearsals in there, that always helps.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, as B, I often get put with someone who's not as experienced, and I use the slider quite a bit in those situations.
I like the why, because you're not just saying we're moving from A to B. You're saying
like-
this is why we're moving from
Yeah.
A to B,
And this
which
is
is a
the-
very different.
Right.
Yeah, and they start to
Yeah,
understand
it's storytelling.
what you're
What
thinking.
this is all about.
The dolly grip really is like another camera operator,
Yeah.
and like a good dolly grip, like they understand filmmaking and the coverage and editing, like Easy was saying, and all this, and but even if it's a new dolly grip or someone who, at least if they have the right attitude about it, like, and they want to learn and want to do great stuff, like you can work with that and just explain, like Chris was saying, you kind of teach them and show them. And actually, I had a situation where it was just that I went into a small town, like the production was being super cheap, wouldn't bring anybody. This guy literally pushed me off the track 4 times on the movie. But I had to pick. It was when I was choosing. They're like, these are the 3 guys you can have. He was this young guy, but he like wanted it. He was so into it. He like came from the family of grips. His like uncle was a key grip. Like he like wanted to be good. And then I worked with him like 4 or 5 years later. He moved to New Orleans and he was killing it. I mean, he was like, he had taken it all so seriously and was really good. And like, it made me a better operator in a lot of ways because I had to articulate why we were doing a shot.
Yeah.
You know, this car drives up here, and I was like, look, I was like, if we're pushing, and I was like, and if the car stops and we're still moving, I can't fix it, and we're standing out there with egg on our face. I was like, if the car drives up and we've already landed 2 seconds earlier, I can kind of pan a little bit on the geared head and bring it in and kind of feather the move and make it look like we're still moving and landed. I was like, but the best thing is that if we just land together. And I was like, that's hard to do because we're human and the person driving the car is a human.
Well, going to that point, what you're doing is you're helping them with success. And I think when you have a young dolly grip or somebody who's learning, teach them how to be successful.
Yeah.
So if you're doing a stand up and you know he's not going to be able to weed those tails and get up in time, maybe you say, hey, let's start this a little bit higher. Or say, hey, take the boom slow. I'm going to take it on the tilt. And then as you're going up, I'll come down with him on that and I'll play the headroom. So giving him ways to succeed. If he gets that confidence, he's going to want to do more and he's going to want to get better and better. When he breaks his confidence earlier, especially when they're young, they tend to shut down. So, and that's when we start relying on the operator telling them which way to go. Anytime my operator has to tell me to go right or left, we're already too late. Okay, if he has to take his hand off his gears, we're behind. So you always want to have that advantage, but it starts with helping them get success early.
And easy to ask you the opposite of it. You're an excellent dolly grip with a long storied career. You show up and you have a new operator. How does that work with you? I mean, because the operator may be going, hey, let's go low mode here and let's do this. And you're like, how do you deal with
So
that?
that same aspect of way I want him to work with a young dolly grip, I try to work with him. I want him to have success too. So same type of things. There'll be a lot of times where I'll tell him, don't take the tilt. Or don't stand him up. Let me do it all. Right. So that I know I can control that headroom for him. Yeah. Same thing too. We're going to do something where maybe there's a back pan in it. I might tell him, you know what, I'm going to put this in roundy round right here. Let me do that for you because I know I saw in the rehearsal you're struggling. So things we can work together on so I can help him if I have a young dolly grip, or some things I'll help feed him, of going, hey, look I'm going to take this a little bit early so we can beat them to that mark, right? So I can help them do the framing with them. So we work together on the framing and the composition, and I'm trying to always watch that composition to see where I can help them with that. So
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say earlier you were talking about decisiveness. And if you have your dolly grip build 20 feet of track and then you use 6 feet of it, they're not going to be thrilled with you. No. So knowing what you need ahead of time to keep that mutual respect and not have anyone do a bunch of extra work unnecessarily is useful.
And I think on that note, and it's harder when you're starting out. It's not like let's get some track over here. It's like I need track from here to here. I want the dolly this way. I want it on low mode. Then
use a finder.
You're like, oh, this person knows what they want.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is, if you've made a mistake, that'll frustrate people, but it'll at least set them up for that. Anybody else have anything?
I mean, use a finder, like really, like if you can show people, even like with Artemis or Cadrage on your phone, which is not as good as an actual finder with the actual lens and the ground glass, but if you can show people the frame, it's just a great way of communicating what your intentions are and what you need. And if you are the relatively inexperienced person between, or even like I'm working with a great dolly grip, and I'll show them this or that or something, this and that. And I have an idea in my head of how I want to do it, and they'll say, well, why don't we just do this or that? I'm like, oh yeah, that's a better way to do it. Yeah. Let's do it that way.
It's about what's the better way. Exactly. Yeah. And I think, if I show up and I've never met this person before, I mean, just so you know, everyone's IMDb'd everybody else. So don't think they haven't. So, and I'm trying to assess what they know. I'll actually go, hey, we need to start over here and we need to go to there. What do you think? What do you want to do? And they'll go, normally I'd go with track, but the boards are right over here. Will that get us there? And so I'm starting to assess like what their decision making skills are. And the other thing I'll say is, like, if I'm working with EZ and they come up with this compound techno crane move, right? I will in my head decide where I think the base should be. And then what I'll do is go, hey, here's a shot we need to do. I got to be up there and I got to come down there. And then as the car drives in, what do you think? And he'll hopefully say the same place, but he might say the crane base should be over here. And I'll go, really? What? I was thinking it was over there. Why are you thinking over here? Well, those power lines are going to stop us if they want us to go higher or whatever. He'll have some reason. And right there, you can sort of figure out, but like you give them the opportunity to put that in so you can assess what they know. And 9 times out of 10, they'll have a better idea. And if you're newer and you're working with someone like EZ, you just go, this is a shot we need. Get the techno ready. And they're like, yeah, great. And then they put it there. And then it works perfectly because you don't have to back pan. And the DP's like, this guy's really good. And you're like, you're coming everywhere with me. But, at the end of the day, it's a team effort.
It is definitely. And I would say one thing, too, is I never let my operator pigeonhole himself, and they never let me do that to myself. We talk about planks or something like that. If I'm outside, I know it's going to evolve. I know it is. So if I set myself up for failure, meaning I put planks down, that's going to be time. We talked about that earlier. I got to stop production, take the planks, have track run in, bring levelage out, and it's going to be a big issue. So always thinking that ahead. But when I think of equipment, don't ever let your dolly grip put you in a spot where you know that when it evolves, we're not going to be able to evolve with it. And I think that'll help that in the future because you'll see things ahead with them and be able to help them.
And the other thing I'll add to that, it's the last shot of the night and they call for a 2-foot move forward and the truck's already been packed. Look at them and go, look, if you want to bring track out, go ahead, but I can do this on a slider. And they're like, really? Is that okay? Yeah, just bring the slider. Let's do that. Let's get them, go home. I mean, no, but you think about that stuff because they've been busting their hump. And I'll tell you one other small thing that someone taught me a long time ago is if there's some long, even short dolly move, and we've moved from A to B, we've done the shot, and we're resetting, and there's not a reason for me to have to look through the eyepiece or whatever, and I'm not exhausted, I will jump off the dolly and walk. And I've had dolly grips goes, what are you doing? Get back on the dolly. I'm like, no, your job is to move me from A to B to do the shot. It is not move. And then they'll fight with me, and invariably I'll end up back on the dolly. But it's true. It's like there's no reason you should have to push the extra weight when you're just resetting. I'll get off, and sometimes I've even said like I'll push it, and they're like, no, you're gonna kick all my wedges, and I'm like, yeah, I probably will. So that's another thing. But I think those things actually go a long way.
We're definitely brothers and sisters out there.
No question about it.
I spend more time with my operators than I do with my own family.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we do, 15 to 18-hour days, one location in these places where it's just us every day. So, we want to do everything for each other. So it's, like I said, those little gestures go a long way.
And you're only as good as your dolly grip.
It's true.
As an operator.
Yep.
Because it's really symbiotic.
And more often than not, your dolly grip will make you better than you are.
Well, keep it simple. I sort of jokingly say like, you can tell like a green operator or a green dolly grip because they want to use every available accessory for the dolly.
Yeah.
And like Chapman has all this stuff and it's great and you need it to make movies and do cool shots, but you don't need all of it all the time. And it's all something that's got to be carried and set up and put away. And like sideboards like are ankle busters and like all this, you can't see the marks as good on the tires. Like there's a bunch of reasons like to use it if you absolutely need it for a shot, and like yes, by all means, you should have it, and it's great that you can do a lot with these pieces of equipment. But like mostly, it's a seat, maybe a riser, and an RO, and that's kind of what you mostly make the movie with.
RO being the most important.
Yeah.
So we are going to finish this portion and go to the sort of speed round. I'm going to ask everybody. We'll start with you, Easy. We'll come down the thing, and I'll finish it off. Advice for someone getting in the business today on how to succeed. You can go anywhere you want with that.
To me, it's art. It's the love of the art. I mean, no day you hear it, right? Work is not work when you love it. I can honestly say that about filmmaking. I love it the same today as I did 30 years ago when I got in. So I just keep your love for it, and you'll never get tired of pushing yourself to the levels.
Greg?
I think everyone defines success differently. So that's up to you. But progress breeds contentment because you're always growing. And when you're always progressing, you're always getting better at everything you can, the success will fall into place. You never actually know where the road is going to take you and how success is going to materialize. So if you just work on things that you think you need to get better at, things that are your passion, everything else will fall into place and you'll be a happier person instead of trying to chase something. It's more about building something within yourself, and that kind of magnetizes success to you as opposed to feeling like you're lacking or you're behind or I should be getting this when someone else got it. That's never going to bring success to you.
Nice. Briggs?
I would say don't be afraid to fail. If you're working with an operator that has way more experience than you, watch that operator, learn from their mistakes, what worked out, what did not work out, talk to that person. Especially if you see it not working out, ask them later, like, what happened? And they'll break it down to you, like why it happened. And you're going to hear everything on the set with the DPs yelling or whoever's yelling at each other. You're going to learn from that mistake so you know what not to do and not set yourself up for failure. I would also say don't be too picky in the beginning of your career. Like work on almost everything. As long as you have a camera in your hands, you're going to learn from something. You're going to pick up something from somebody that's there that may have more experience. And a lot of times on the independent level of things that you're learning and trying to do will help you succeed later on these bigger shows that some people are not thinking about how they get out of a certain situation. You're going to go back to that independent world. Oh, I can do that. I've done this. And also speed on the independent level will help you out later in some of those, areas.
Good. Matt?
I think like stay passionate and engaged because that will come through, and like kind of building on what everyone was saying, it's like don't, like kind of keep that hunger and everything. Be honest, be kind. Like we're all like humans, like making movies, about people, for people. Like the human element is important. And the thing I really wish I knew, and I was like so obsessed with wanting to be like the consummate filmmaker when I was young, and I wish I had gone off in my early 20s and spent 6 months just like in Europe, just going around when I, out of college and don't have any overhead or expenses and things, and like just like which is really, and you can like I try to apply it. It's just to be present, like get out of your screen, go like enjoy life, see things, go to a museum, go out in the world, go on a hike, like just all that stuff. It make like more life experience will make you a better storyteller and a better filmmaker, and probably a cooler person to hang out with on set.
Yeah, totally.
Relationships are so important in this industry. Not only is it how we get our next job, but we spend 14 hours a day with each other, and coming in with a good attitude and caring about each other is so important. I'd rather hire someone that I want to spend more time with than maybe someone who's a little bit more experienced. And in that regard, use those relationships and learn from the people around you. I'm constantly learning and wanting to get better. And whether you're going from AC to operator or you're an operator trying to shoot, asking questions and learning from people who know more than you is so valuable.
Sure. I think getting back to a little bit what Matt said is like, I think life experience and, whether it be going to museums, reading, listening to music, whatever style you may like, or listen to things that you normally wouldn't, or go to museums that maybe you don't think you'd enjoy, but you do. Watch all kinds of movies. I think having a film library in your head is extremely important to communicate with DPs and directors, and sometimes even actors. And, filmmaking doesn't come from a vacuum, right? It comes from life. So I think it's really important to have those experiences. And I think building that library in your head is really important, because I've used that a lot with directors, and it breaks the ice a lot of times as well. And sometimes music will, or whatever it may be, and it'll make you a more interesting person on set as well.
Yeah. You guys hit so much. I would say know that you're going to fail. If you don't fail, you're not trying. And if you're not trying, what's the point? But know that you're going to get back up from that, and it'll make you stronger if you can figure out, you learn something from it. be a good person. Just be nice. Be nice to people. I know that seems really simple, and sometimes it's easy, and sometimes it's hard, but there's no question about it. Remember that you're not a camera operator, you're not a dolly grip, you're not a first AC, you're not a director. You're all storytellers. And one of my favorite people to work with, Tommy Shalami, as a director, once said, "I don't want to work with 200 crew members. I want to work with 200 storytellers." And I totally, completely agree with that. And so I think if you put yourself in that mindset, the camera operating just becomes natural because you're telling a story. Art, no question about it. Go to art museums and look at Renaissance art if you want to learn about
Lighting.
operating and lighting and why did they frame things that way. Take pictures. Just challenge yourself and don't be in a position where you're comfortable, because if you're in a position where you're comfortable, again, you're not learning. And this has been 35 years and I'm still learning constantly. And I'll leave you with this one thing, which is Chris Chulak is a great director that I've worked with, often says the star of the movie is the movie. It's not the actor, it's not the story, it's not the director, it's not the DP, it's not you, the operator. It's the story. So when you're on set, everything that you have to do should be serving the story and serving the movie. And I think if you keep that in mind, this is a great industry to be a part of, and hopefully you'll find that too. But and have fun. It's a lot of fun. I mean, there's a lot of times when it's not fun, but a lot of times when it's like
Really
you will be in there and you'll go, I'm getting paid to do this. Like I would pay to do this, and I'm getting paid to do this. And so those are those moments that you hang on to, and it makes it all worthwhile. Thanks for listening so much. I hope you got a lot out of that. I had a blast and actually learned a lot. Again, thank you to the SOC, soc.org for putting the thing on, and for Chapman for hosting us, which was really fantastic. Please check out the op.io for more information on operating, and we'll see you next week. Thanks.